Welcome to another episode of The Plunge. And yes, we have a lot to get into again this week. And so we're going to talk about some NBA storylines just as usual, preview some Super Bowl stuff, and even get into some Dodger stuff for baseball at the end. So let's just start with the NBA. The All-Star Game. Yesterday it was announced that the NBA, they're going to move forward with an All-Star Game in March in Atlanta. And there's been headlines of LeBron saying, I'll be there physically, but I won't be there mentally. And I know Bill Simmons said the concept of an all-star game is ridiculous during this season where you have all the best players in the same court playing together. So, Nate, what are your thoughts on the all-star game? And is this the right move for the league?
When this was brought up initially, all I could think about was how great the All-Star game was last year. They had that Elam ending, and Joel Embiid was posting up down on the block late in the game, and Chris Paul was grinding it out. And it was just such a fun event. And for years and years, the All-Star game had been terrible. But bringing it back this year was kind of exciting for me because I have a renewed excitement for the All-Star game in general now. But it's such a bad idea. You bring 30 guys who are your best, 24 guys who are the best 24 guys in the league. Imagine if you have a case that goes unidentified in the middle of the game. 24 of the best players in the league out for 2 weeks. Like, it's so crazy to me that you could think that this would be a good idea when so many teams have already had cases and problems. And yet, I mean, it drew so many fans last year, and it drew so much money into that game. And I guess money talks in the industry, but I think this is a terrible idea. I know Fox had mentioned too, he was asked about it in his press conference if he would play. And he said yes, but he thinks it's such a stupid idea to have it at this point. But I am happy as a fan, but I think even as a business decision in the long run, this may come back to hurt the NBA if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and there was so much hype about last year in the All-Star game and saying like, oh, they finally fixed the All-Star game. It's finally competitive. And it is such a bad decision, and I actually never came across the thought of having 24 of your best players on the same floor together when people actually mentioned it a week ago. And so, it's just such a scary thought because look how many instances you had this year in the NBA where, like, I think there was a Pistons game a couple weeks ago where they literally last minute like postponed the game. It was Pistons Nuggets, and it was like 5 minutes until tip off, and they're like, no, we're calling the game off. And so what if like you have like just because of that instance, there's that uncertainty of inconclusive tests, and what if you get one in the All-Star game? And so it's unfortunate. I mean, but hey, Klay Thompson is 10th in the Western Conference fan voting. So I mean, if there's an All-Star game, let's see Klay on the floor play with 1 foot, and also CJ McCollum. I think CJ McCollum's somewhere there too as well. So if you could get a starting backcourt of CJ McCollum and Klay Thompson to start in the All-Star game, I would watch that for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That'd be a great chance to get some marquee players from this season on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, moving on from this All-Star topic, the Heat continue to struggle as they fall to 7-14 this week and lose to the Wizards in a game on Thursday night. What % chance do you give this Heat team to make the playoffs?
I'm going to say 70 to 75%. If you look at the standings now, sure, it looks horrible when you're a Heat fan. They're like 13th in the East, 7-14. But when you look at the teams ahead of them, you have Orlando, Chicago, New York, Toronto, Cleveland, Atlanta, and Charlotte. And it's still, we're only just a quarter of the way into the season, so it's a bit of a logjam actually. And like you look at the teams like Orlando, New York, Chicago, Miami's a good enough team to leapfrog these teams. And so I think they have the culture, they have the leadership of Jimmy Butler, and the coaching of Spo to turn this ship around fast. And if you're a Heat fan, now you're thinking like, yeah, now's the time to actually get your act together. Let's actually start stringing together some wins. Avery Bradley is out 3 to 4 weeks with a calf injury, which is a huge blow to them. But I think Miami has the right pieces together to kind of, yeah, like I said, turn the ship around. Orlando, Chicago, they're going to lose some more games. New York, maybe, yes, maybe, I don't know. Cleveland might drop a bit. Toronto might rise up again because they've won a couple games now, and so I think Miami hasn't lost their mojo at all. I think it's more of just a fatigue from the finals. It's great that Butler has kind of had time off. Not saying that COVID's been bad, but physically he's had some time off to rest as well and to recuperate. And so I think you're able to play him his regular workload now, and same as Bam and all those guys. That like they just have so many championship caliber players that you just can't count them out of the playoffs.
We're reaching a point in this season though where you're saying, who would I rather take? The Heat, who are a better team, or the Hawks, who have a 7-game head start kind of thing, right? And you're looking at those teams, and the Hawks are a good team, and the Eastern Conference playoffs, as we've talked about before, are actually competitive this year, even to get into that 8th spot. And I know they're expanding the playoff teams to play-in teams. So in that standpoint, yes, the Heat are probably, I would give them 90% to be in the playoffs, because if they get to the playoffs or the play-in game, it's Jimmy Butler. Like, Jimmy Butler can shoot 20% from three-point range all year, and yet in the final seconds of a game, you want the ball in his hand on the three-point line, because as Spo said earlier this season, you can't put analytics on his will to win. And it's so true. And you look at this team like Dragic, Hero, Robinson, Bam, Jimmy, of course. And there is no way that a roster like this could not dominate physically and mentally a team like in Atlanta in those play-in games. And that is why, yes, there is reason for concern, because you are the Heat. You don't want to play Brooklyn in that first round matchup, or you don't want to play even a team like Indiana. You don't want to play a team like Indiana in that first round matchup. Phillies look great. Boston can be really good at times. And then, of course, the Bucks. That might be your favorite matchup if you're getting that
sure.
8th seed. But it's one of those situations where if you're Miami, yes, you have a great chance of making the playoffs still, and you're not in danger of falling out of that playoff position because of the play-in game. But you're setting yourself up for early failure this year if you continue down this path that they've been on so far.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the fact that COVID has ravaged their entire roster. I think they've barely played together with a full roster. Dragic isn't even fully healthy. He's playing through a knee injury, and so, yeah. But I think if you're the Miami Heat, you have to make you kind of have to make it past the 6th seed, because I don't think you'd want to run into a team like Atlanta or Charlotte in the play-in when they both have such high octane offenses. But I don't know. I've just heard some people talking about how Miami like should avoid the play, and then they should just really place as high as possible in the standings. And even like as you said, even if they do make it out of the play-in tournament, they got to play the number 1 or number 2 seed, and so yeah, it's do or die now for them. But I have a lot of faith in them, and compared to the Dallas Mavericks, but we'll get to them in a sec.
That play-in situation should be interesting in the East, especially because you're kind of like, if you're that 7 seed and you're playing the 8 seed in that play-in game, maybe you want to lose, because I would say it's most likely that because of consistency, the Bucks finish first, just because they come in every night and they play the exact same way, whereas Brooklyn is very hit or miss on whether they're going to play all 3 of their stars, or even if they're going to try that hard. So that's where you look at it and you're like, would I rather play the Bucks or Brooklyn in that first round? And the Bucks are more consistent, but Brooklyn is obviously scarier.
For sure. I think, I think if you're Coach Spo and the organization of the Heat, you're for sure looking into this and seeing how your placement affects who you play the first round in the playoffs. Like, you'd rather run into Milwaukee because you've shut them down defensively every single year. So, yeah. So moving on. The Super Bowl is in 2 days. So what are the chances that you give Patrick Mahomes to end as the greatest of all time over Tom Brady?
80%. I know this is a super high number and people are going to hate on me. I've had a lot of people talk about how Tom Brady is the GOAT and how that isn't ever going to be in question. But name a time in sports when a guy walked in and people were saying he could be the greatest of all time after his first year playing. Like, Patrick Mahomes he's not Michael Jordan, who took 5 years to actually enter that level. He's not like baseball. You've got Barry Bonds, you've got all these guys who maybe were the GOATs, and Mike Trout now, who after 4 or 5 years in the league, people were like, okay, he's putting up these stats where he's so consistent that maybe he could go down as the greatest baseball player of all time. Patrick Mahomes walked into the league in his second year, first year starting. People were saying, this guy is the greatest talent I've ever seen. He gives a team the greatest chance to win that I've ever seen. Like, he is going to, in my opinion, get his second title in his third year starting, and his only loss is going to be due to a coin flip in overtime against the Patriots at basically the peak of their second rise, where they were able to win a couple Super Bowls. They played against the Eagles and they lost that one, but they beat the Falcons and the Rams during that stretch there. And that is like, it's unheard of to see a guy walk in, have that much success, have the team totally buy into him. He signed there for 10 years this past offseason. Like, it adds up to being the greatest of all time. And he's already the greatest talent of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you just see how he just twists the entire game around. Like, when he plays offensively, it's like, wow, I never seen that before. Like, I never seen anybody like no look passes underhand pitch to Kelsey for a 1 yard run for a TD. Right? It's these like little things that he does that is so mesmerizing, and people just take so much appreciation to it, and I think I agree with you. I really don't have much else to say in terms of Mahomes, and yes, I'm not really too big of a fan of Brady. I don't know why, but it's just he's been so consistent, and my opinion's probably a bit biased in terms of favoring Mahomes as the greatest of all time, but at the same time, like you got to look at it from a big picture perspective. Like, this guy's going to win multiple Super Bowls. He's probably going to win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady. But again, like we said last episode, this game on Sunday is going to determine really how he really stacks up amongst the GOATs, and this will really be a benchmark in terms of how he stacks up against Brady after all said and done in this game on Sunday. So any last Super Bowl thoughts, or even just Mahomes as
on Mahomes, I just see, like, when I look at Tom Brady, he kind of reminds me of the NBA equivalent to Tim Duncan, just because those championships were so spread apart. But no one ever looks at Tim Duncan as the greatest of all time, and that's due to the greater talent pool. And it's kind of easier to win a championship in the NBA in some sense, because if you are the best team, you'll prevail most of the time in a 7-game series. But it's funny to me because Brady rubs me the wrong way, because his peak never seemed that great. You know, like, you look at his best years and they're good. He won a couple of MVPs along the way, but his peak just wasn't that high. He didn't have those years of like dominating the entire league where coming into the year that his team should be the favorite for the Super Bowl without question, and no one is even going to challenge that. Whereas with the Chiefs, you look at the next, barring major injuries, you look at the next 5 years, I probably would say that the Chiefs are going to be the favorite every one of those years if they continue the path that they're on now.
Yeah, and your point on him comparing Brady to Duncan, it's like these guys have been so consistent, and the reason why Brady's been just as heralded as the greatest all time currently is that he plays till he's like 50 even. He's probably going to play till he's 50. And but the thing is that watching Brady, it's a bit, to me it's a bit boring. Like time after time, like he just makes the right passes. He just like does all these things, and sure, he's had like a lot of comebacks and all that. But when you watch Mahomes, like, would you rather watch Tom Brady for the next 10 years, or would you rather watch Mahomes for the next 10 years, both in their primes, assuming, right? And I of course would pick Mahomes because he's more entertaining to watch. He is way more creative than anybody in the league in being the QB of the team. And so I think with that, it has to be Mahomes, and I'm just excited for what he does for the next 10 years and what new things he makes up on the field.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be an exciting next 10 years with him, and I hope to see them in many more Super Bowls. So moving on from the Super Bowl and Mahomes, we get into one of the main topics of our day-to-day, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. This is a team that I love. I've loved Luka since he entered the league. But the Mavs they lost 6 straight. They got a win against the Hawks, and then they went to the Warriors on Thursday, and they got smacked. Kelly Oubre dropped 40 on this Mavericks team. Is it time for Dallas to panic?
Oh yeah, you are hitting the panic button as hard as you can right now, and it is only a quarter of the way into the season, and sometimes in some circumstances it's senseless to look at the standings right now and make harsh judgments, but there are just problems on teams that stick out so bad that you can't just ignore and say, oh, this is just an unusual, unlucky start to the season, and we're a good enough team to start winning whenever we want. But the Dallas Mavericks, they are not that team, and they're 9-14, 14th in the West. And we were talking about this yesterday. Like they just look completely different. Luka is just playing like this is his team, and this is his team, but he's playing like on the court, I am the only guy on offense, 1 versus 5. Like every time I watch them play on the offensive side, either two things happen. Luka drives to the he leads the lead. He leads the league currently and drives to the basket, and you clearly see it. So he either drives to the basket or he hits the guy 4 feet away from him on the opposite slot for an open 3, 4 seconds into the shot clock. And we were mentioning nobody's cutting, nobody's doing anything. And sure, you can make the excuse that, oh, we just got everyone back from injury, oh, this and that, oh, this and that. But Luka's the problem. Like he's 21 years old and he's your leader. But like and he had a bad start to the season. And I think that's causing him to really trying to take over the offense, and that leaves guys, all your role players, saying like, oh, I don't want to get in the way of Luka because we need to get him going, and I don't really want to yell in his face because he's the leader of this team. So I'll just minimize my role as much as possible, where all I do is just sit in the corner and wait for an open 3. And if you're the Mavericks, that's not the way to go. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Mavericks? I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Yeah, well, I love this Mavericks team. Man, last year in the bubble, I thought they had it against the Clippers if Kristaps didn't go down, because they were just playing so efficiently. That Luka Kristaps pick and roll, when Kristaps actually rolls hard to the basket, is absolutely unstoppable. I mean, either your choices are you come out on Luka hard and Luka throws a lob to Kristaps, or Kristaps pops out, Luka gets to the basket, and you're in trouble there too because Kristaps is such a good shooter. But oh my goodness, this team they're so offensively challenged. Like the ball either goes to Luka and everyone stands out of the way and he makes a pass to a guy like Richardson. Like, okay, Richardson, he's an interesting player. He can be good at times, but the ball gets passed to these guys, Finney-Smith, Richardson, Kleba right now, and they decide, like, the defense isn't broken down at all. They almost always shoot with the guy in front of them. Luka stands so still when he doesn't have the ball. Like, the amount of times I've seen Luka stand near half court when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, like, it's absurd. It's James Harden-esque, and I hate that comparison. I've hated that comparison for so long because I always thought, hey, Luka is more like older LeBron than James Harden. That's a comparison that I liked more for Luka last year. But the thing is, he's gotten so in his head from his bad start to the season because he has so much pressure on him, right? Like AD has had a slow start to the season as well, but he plays on that Lakers team where if he has a slow start, who cares, right? Like LeBron can make it happen. Everyone else around him can make it happen. So he doesn't have to force anything. And that's when you look at a team in Dallas, Luka has to force absolutely everything because there's no players on his team who are able to create offense right now. Kristaps stands on the 3-point line all the time. Like he's standing like 5 feet past the 3-point line right now on every position. They played the Warriors last night. Juan Toscano was their tallest player. I think he posted up 3 times in the game. Like, it's crazy. He looks like he's lost out there other than when he's shooting these deep threes. And this Mavs team is going to continue to struggle as Luka as they lose more and more, he's slipping more into that James Harden mold and further away from that old LeBron leadership role. And I talked about Luka as the best player in the league at the start of the season, like swapping him with LeBron on that Lakers team. I didn't think there was that much drop off, but just watching them now, every game they're digging deeper and deeper into this stagnant offense, this terrible defense. Like, man, the Warriors, if you watched that Warriors game last night, they were open on every single cut to the basket. Like, Dorian Finney-Smith was getting beat on every cut to the basket when he was a top 10 wing defender last year. It's their whole team has withdrawn from defense because of their offensive struggles, and I'm not going to hit the panic button yet, like you were saying. I mean, there's possibilities that they could figure this out. I watched an interview with Brunson yesterday, and I think Jalen Brunson could be a good leader on that team moving forward. But they need someone to call out Luka. They need to start playing real basketball again, where they cut and push the ball around the perimeter. And Kristaps Porzingis needs to stop playing away from the basket on both defense and offense if they want to see any improvement from what they've done so far.
Yeah, bro, like Kristaps Porzingis was going against Juan Toscano Anderson at the jump ball. Like, if if that is your center matchup, you have to dump the ball to Porzingis like every single time. Like it is just so like sickening to not see him post up. And I don't know if that's a product of really Porzingis. Actually, he can't really post up because like he really doesn't have a post up game. And sure, you could watch a couple of possessions yesterday in the game where Porzingis gets the ball in the high post, and there actually was some offense. Like he drew like 2 or 3 guys and he kicked it up for a 3. But even then, like you were saying, there's barely any movement on the perimeter, and the problem is for the Mavs is that like in a bigger picture perspective, there's nobody who can hold Luka accountable for what he does on the court and even off the court. Like, who knows what his leadership is off the court, but like on the court, like no one is able to hold him accountable. There are no good veterans on the team, and when you look at past Mavericks team with Luka on the team, you had guys like JJ Barea, you had Dirk still when he was playing. Those guys could mentor him, and those guys could really, teach him the game not only on the court but how to lead off the court. And when you don't sign JJ Barea again for this year, you don't have any good veterans on the team to really mentor Luka, and not mentoring on the court because everyone knows he's such a star on the court, but off the court and how to lead this team. He like no one is there to help him, and you kind of feel for the guy because he's only 21 years old and he's put into a position to lead a team, right? And so I think like when you have those things into perspective, you kind of expect this Mavs team to go on such a bad drought when you're a quarter way through the season, and yeah, they're just missing a veteran like Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, or Russell Westbrook, and to really bring one of those, like a type of those guys on the Mavericks team to really mentor Luka. And I actually made this comparison yesterday when I was thinking about this. The Mavs and the Celtics are pretty similar in terms of having young guys who lead their team offensively and defensively and off the court as well. But when you look at the Celtics team, Like they had Kyrie, even Marcus Morris, Al Horford to mentor Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And look at them now. They're like one of the best duos in the league, and probably going to be the best duo in the league in a few years. And they have learned from these veterans in Horford and Morris and those guys. And so when you look at the Mavs team, like they really didn't have a good veteran player who really demonstrated even on the court and off the court to teach Luka and to really show him the ropes to the NBA. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
In that respect, it's unfortunate the timeline didn't overlap between Dirk and Luka, just because Dirk went through the same experiences. He went through some losing seasons. He went through some great seasons with Nash and Michael Finney.
Right.
And they just had such an up and down experience at times for that Mavericks team, and that would have really helped Luka earlier in his career just be able to figure it out. And I can't even express how much it would have done for Kristaps, because he just looks like he's lost out there. Like, I mean, he's been putting up reasonable stats in the last few games, but I've kind of been under this assumption for so long after watching that playoff series last year, which they were really good in, but that Kristaps is that secondary star where he can be a top 10 player in the league, and that will kind of boost them into championship contention within the next 3 years. And then watching him now, it's like, is he a liability on the floor? Like, as soon as he came back, that's when their losing streak kind of started. And it pains me so much. Like, it hurts me to watch his Mavs team struggle, because I'm so high on Luka. I love this team. I love the idea of the Mavericks, where they bring in these European guys and they kind of dominate the league. And it's like so much pressure on Luka. I mean, I just wish they could have a player come on who was a playmaker, like a Tyrese Halliburton in Sacramento right now, where when Fox isn't making plays, Tyrese comes in and makes the right plays. He's a smart guy. He can run the floor. There's no other guy on this team right now, because Brunson's kind of gone into that two-guard role now, where he's shooting and attacking, which he needs to be doing, and he's been really good at it this season. But there's no other point guard on this team. They suck when Luka's off the floor. They suck defensively even when he's on, and they're going to continue to struggle as long as they don't make a massive shift in how they're playing.
Yeah. So what's your potential solution to this team? Like, do they need to fix some on-court stuff, or do they need to make some trades even?
I think they messed up in this offseason giving away Seth Curry, because Seth Curry, he's known to just be a shooter, but he's also kind of a playmaker, and he continues to give Philadelphia someone to go to when they don't have great playmakers on the floor, and he keeps that offense humming. And then you trade for a guy like Richardson, who's played terrible defense this year. His only shots that are made are contested. He doesn't really play make. And so my solution to this might be going out and getting a guy like JJ Redick from New Orleans, because he is, 1, a veteran presence, 2, he moves without the ball, 3, he is a playmaker in some sense. I mean, he draws the defense. You can't leave him alone. So in that sense, he is a playmaker, and he makes the right reads and he makes the right passes. So maybe you talk to New Orleans about JJ Redick and Lonzo Ball and see what they are thinking for them. Maybe you could get rid of a guy like Richardson and bring in some new fresh talent in that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, getting JJ Redick would be such a good kickstart to your offense, because you literally can run him a dribble handoff where he comes off the corner, and then 2 guys are trapped, and then you just slip the ball to the big, and then you rotate, right? So I think, and that is literally just instant offense. Like, you watch the Heat do that with Robinson. Gets the handoff from Bam. Bam slips the double on the hedge and gets the ball high post, guy cuts, lob, like easy dunk, right? And so like with a guy like Redick who just draws so much attention to the defense, it really creates a lot of havoc, and that's the problem that the Mavs are having, where they can't get defenses to break down because their offense is so stagnant. And yeah, so do you think Luka will get out of his head and actually try to distribute the ball more, or is he gonna just keep chucking up step back threes, hoping they go in?
When you look at this Mavs team, the only way to get Luka off the ball is going to be having another guy take that responsibility on. And maybe that's Jalen Brunson. Like I said before, he's a smart guy. He comes from that Villanova system. And you have to, if you are going to start to fix these problems, you have to put Luka off the ball some, and you have to get him back into the motions of cutting and looking to find other guys, even rotating the ball around the perimeter. Like, he's kind of lost the ability to do that because he's so worried about his stats and how he's affecting the game. So you need to put the ball in someone else's hands for Luka to recover from this start of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go. But final question, Nate, for this team. What is final verdict? Where are they going to end up at the end of the season? And it's tough because we're only a quarter of a way, but what is your bold prediction for the Mavs?
That's a hard decision between where I hope and where I think. I'm going to give you a range, 7 to 10. So a play-in team, but not where I thought they'd be at the start of the season.
Yeah, but hey, that opens the door for the Blazers. Just saying. And also, I think part of your anger towards the Mavs, you have to admit that Luka's on your fantasy team, so I think that kind of draws towards your anger for the team.
Although surprisingly, I think I wouldn't mind seeing him take a step back if it gave him kind of a renewed view on how they play and how they need to play to win. So usually I'm really selfish fantasy-wise, but I love this Mavs team, and I need to see them get into the right direction because I really have high hopes for this roster.
Wow. Probably the first time I've heard you say putting something over your fantasy team in terms of the NBA. Like, I remember you're always like, oh man, I need some 30 plus, 40 plus points guys on my fantasy team. I don't care how the team's doing. I just need them to drop 50 points a game.
Yep, that's true. If you want some great fantasy steals, you always just gotta look at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Legit. Who cares if the Pistons are like 0-20 the next 2 games? I hope if DeLon Wright averages a triple double for my team, I'm okay. Totally okay. Who cares if the Pistons lose?
I did have a comment about the Pistons randomly today. I was reading this post and they were talking about the City Edition jerseys. And I don't know if you remember the Pistons teal jerseys. Like, this was back in the Grant Hill days. I don't know if you've seen them, but...
Oh, is it with the horse?
Yeah, with the teal horse.
Yeah.
How have the Pistons not brought these back yet? Like, those jerseys are beautiful. Their current Motor City ones they look like garbage. Like, man, these teams who have embraced their past jerseys, the Spurs have that really nice City Edition. People love the Lakers as well. The Pistons have to bring back the teal Mustang ones.
Yeah. Yo, like there's 2021 City Edition jersey, like, you know, like the 2 blue stripes, like, right? The vertical ones.
Yeah,
I think that's supposed to represent like car tracks or something, or dirt tracks, but that is really like symbolic of how they play their games, where they just get steamrolled by every single team in the league.
Yeah, they got moved back to the teal Pistons. That was their I think maybe they were still wearing those as their alternate in 2004. So they got to get back to the winning days, and those teal jerseys are the way to do it.
Yeah, but I think they got to win more games in order to gain that respect of even wearing those jerseys again.
Yeah, sure. But the Jeremy Grant teal jersey, that's why I would live for it.
What's your number one favorite City jersey this year?
My number one favorite City jersey this year would have to be the Valley Phoenix. It's just such nice. It's got such nice colors. It's not trying too hard. Like, its design is not, it's not like the blue Bucks jersey. Like, what even is that? Like,
Yeah, what
I
the?
don't even know who's playing, and and they've just gone for these blue jerseys. They have no meaning. Like, it's crazy. But the Phoenix ones, they have a good meaning. They have a great design, and they have very nice colors. So that's my number one Say edition. What about you?
I I really like. Ah, man, there's a lot actually. I don't think I have a number one, but I think one that stood out to me recently was the Hornets one. Like the golden and blue Buzz City jerseys, like they just look so clean. It's like the jersey feels like it's jewelry because of the colors and how shiny it is. But yeah, I also like what was it? I think the Lakers ones are nice. Memphis, that's right. They had the Vancouver Grizzlies one last year, and I think I really like their jersey this year where it's like the gold letters of Memphis and then they have all the patterns on the side jersey. And to me, it looks like some First Nation stuff, but I don't think it is, but it looks very similar to that. So cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid jersey. There's some good ones, but man, some teams are reaching.
Yeah. Like New York's is like, what the heck is that? The city that never
Yep,
sleeps.
agreed.
I'm still waiting for Portland to have their Oregon jerseys out because they haven't worn it yet. I think it's mid-February they
Yeah, I
start
know.
wearing
I'm
it.
surprised.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah, that's a really nice jersey, actually.
Man, I've been wanting to get that Oregon jersey, but they're always sold out. Like it's so nice. It's like nice and brown.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
I really like some of the designs on the side too. Like
Yeah.
some of them will have their kind of mountain ranges that are part of the state. And that's kind of a cool addition where you're putting more details into like not just the front, but like the intricacies of the jersey.
Yeah, I always like it when teams put stuff on the side. Like it's like Memphis, Portland, I think no, not Utah. Oh, Washington. Washington is nice.
Yeah, Utah does do that with their with both of their jerseys.
Yeah.
They have the red rock ones and then the dark rock ones this year.
They got rid of the purple ones this year, right? Kind of sucks.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably my favorite jersey that you can still kind of get. Like I was saying, the Pistons ones you can't get anymore, but that purple mountain jersey,
Oh yeah.
it's just a classic.
Like there's no doubt they're gonna bring that back in future years. So
Yeah, for sure.
anyways, getting back to our last topic of the pod, some more baseball stuff. Trevor Bauer, he signs with guess who? The Los Angeles Dodgers. Who else but the Dodgers? And so they have just such a stacked rotation right now. So they have Clayton Kershaw, Trevor Bauer, Walker Buehler, David Price, and I think either Julio Urias or Dustin May. Like that is so stacked, and their batting orders again still so stacked from last year. So Nate, is this one of the best teams in MLB history?
Yes. Short answer. I mean, they were talking about how he was the best team in MLB history last year. Like you can look back. There are a lot of teams before my time, like the Babe Ruth Yankees. I obviously did not watch any of them, and there's a lot of teams that have come and gone, especially within the 2000s to the 2010s, who were great. Like the New York Yankees had a really good run with Jeter and everything, but this rotation is unbelievable now. They're super deep. Dustin May was like the number one prospect in all of baseball for a while, and he's been taken back to maybe he's a part of the rotation. Like that's how deep this team is, and he was good last year too. And this team continues to add depth. They really haven't lost any marquee players this like past 5 years. And yeah, maybe Justin Turner leaves this year, but they have probably the best rotation I've seen since the Phillies in like 2008 to 2012, where they had
with Cliff Lee.
Yeah, Cliff Lee, Hamels, Roy Halladay, and they were so complete in their pitching rotation. But I look at like Dallas has the Dodgers have one of the greatest orders I've ever seen. And now they add more to this pitching rotation, who is already great. They continue to prove why they're going to be the marquee team in baseball, not just for this year, but the next 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think even just their pitching staff as a whole is probably one of the best in the league, if not the best, because their bullpen is stacked as well. You literally have two top caliber closers on your team, Kenley Jansen and Blake Treinen. Both of those guys can start or play in the ninth and close out games. And so, this team's going to be a brutal team to deal with in the MLB this year. They're going to be World Series favorites again. So, that really does it for our pod this episode. Excited for the Super Bowl. We might have a guest next week talking about the Super Bowl. We will see. And yes, Nate, we will both be watching Luka Doncic and the Mavs the next week or two. And so, yeah.
Yeah, if you get a chance to watch any Kings, Tyrese Halliburton might be my favorite prospect in the league now. He's just a genius player. So get out and watch some Kings basketball.
It makes me want to start liking his jumper just because the way he's playing. It's like, whoa.
He currently, I've said this to you before, but he currently is what people imagine Lonzo could be like. And people just don't notice because he's in Sacramento. But yep, watch out for him. He's a great player, and that backcourt has been really clicking lately.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings are actually not too bad, but we'll maybe talk about them next week and see where they are at next week. So, thanks again for listening to the pod. If you have any questions, be sure to message us on Instagram. And until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.